Hello, and welcome to episode 37 of Matchett and the Other Guy. I laid out there a little bit there, Kevin, just because with that wonderful evocative thunder in the background, I thought it would be quite nice for our gentle listener to hear that.
Atmospheric.
Very atmospheric.
You know, some people pay a lot for sound effects.
We get all our sound effects for free.
That's right.
The geese never charge us anything.
No, and there's a whole flock of them out there right now, so I wouldn't be surprised if they don't join in yet again, but who knows, they may decide to be quiet today.
Well, gentle listener, as you have heard with our atmospheric free sound effects, today is not the most beautiful day, but that's never stopped us doing anything in the past, has it?
No.
Yeah. So, for those new to our podcast, I'm Steve. Kevin is sitting to my left. We are sitting outside my home on the banks of Lake Wylie in Charlotte, North Carolina. And all we do during this podcast is talk. I never know the subject of conversation. Kevin does. Kevin, what are we talking about today?
Well, you and the listener will recall that our last episode was about live theater and such.
Yes.
Well, this kind of dovetails into that because when we did experience live theater as a child, it is often through school. And what do you do in school to go do something like that? You go on a field trip.
Right.
So
right.
Field trips are what
Yeah.
we're discussing today.
Now, I'm giggling because, once again, I love all the subjects that you pick for conversation because they do spark memories. But I have to say, I think you will have experienced way more field trips from school than I ever did because, as we've talked about with comprehensive education in England, we never seem to have an awful lot of money in our education system, and school trips away from school were very few and very far between. So start us off, what's your great memory of field trips from your school days?
Well, we'll start at the early days. Again, you know, we did some to see theatrical things like we discussed in the last one. Always a standard seemed to be the zoo. You'd have an occasional zoo trip.
Yes, yeah.
So, and actually, Knoxville, you know, was known for having a world-class zoo.
Was no more?
No, it still is.
Oh,
I mean,
okay,
it's still,
okay.
still. In fact, probably one of the most famous people in the zoo industry is Jack Hanna. You know, you probably heard of Jack Hanna.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's the Columbus Zoo up in
Okay.
Ohio. He's known
Yeah.
for. But as I understand it, he worked at the Knoxville Zoo early on.
Did he?
So he maybe cut his teeth there or did a number of years there.
Yeah.
So I think we've got a little claim to fame with him. So we were definitely, you know, known for having a zoo, and we would go to that on occasion. Others were, and I can't remember how early we started doing these, but there's always a every city has a planetarium.
Yes.
You go to the planetarium
Yes.
and see the presentation of that.
Yes.
So I remember those in the school days. And the song they always played was "Dust in the Wind" by Kansas.
Okay.
Now again, this was the 70s, maybe early 80s, so
Yeah.
it was right in tune, and it just kind of.
I don't think we ever went to a planetarium, but again, I don't think we ever went very far at all. I do remember that we visited the zoo, and I think, if memory serves, it was a zoo called Twycross Zoo, which is pretty famous in England. There's not that many zoos, not that many zoos anyway, frankly, in England, but I don't think anyway. But do remember visiting Twycross Zoo, which I quite liked actually. I quite liked visiting the zoo. And my only other memory of a field trip was to visit HMS Victory down on the south coast, which was Nelson's flagship. And even as a young kid, I was aware of just how little headroom there was in that ship back then.
What type of ship was
It
it?
was old wooden, you know, an old wooden
Oh,
naval
like a
vessel.
frigate.
Yeah, frigate.
Oh, gotcha.
Yes, absolutely. And HMS Victory has gone under great restoration, permanently dry docked, of course. But a beautiful piece of naval architecture, for want of a better expression. But I was just amazed at how compact, how unbelievably small those old wooden fighting ships of the line used to be, quite frankly, back then. Yeah. Where else did you used to go on field trips?
I'll tell you, one of them is actually the best one we have ever went on that I recall, I think this being the best, was in junior high. Now, again, we were living in Central Florida, and we went to the Kennedy Space Center for the day.
Oh, wow.
And this was a big one because we left at like 8 a.m. and weren't getting back until like 8 p.m. I mean,
Yeah.
This was way beyond the normal school day. So it was a big to-do. So we all piled up on the buses. I can't remember how many were involved, but we went over to the Kennedy Space Center, and you go through like the museum area, And then at some point they take you on little shuttle buses out to see the launch pads,
Yes.
which were fascinating. And then the VA, we weren't allowed to go in it. I guess at different times you can or can't. The VAB, the Vehicle Assembly Building,
Okay, yeah.
which it may still be it holds the largest capacity of any single building in the world. It's so large that they said it would atmospherically get its own clouds inside and sometimes rain inside because
Okay.
it could build up enough.
Is that
And
right?
They said that you could put Yankee Stadium on top of it and still have room for parking. It was that big. And you just saw it in the distance. And they had these
Yeah.
huge, gigantic doors, these vertical doors that would lift up
Yeah.
to allow the rockets to roll out on pads, on their little transportation pads. This was 83, so the space shuttle was a very big deal at that moment. And I think there was one inside at the time, but there was, because sometimes you'll be there and it may be on its journey on the crawler going from that building to a launch pad, which
Yes.
I'm not sure. I think it maybe goes 3 miles an hour.
I
or
was just
something
going
like
to
that.
say,
It's a very
crawler really is
Yeah.
is the way to describe it, isn't it?
yeah. So we didn't get to see a vehicle that was ready for launch or being worked on for security reasons, I guess, at
Yeah.
that time. But we got to spend. I'm sure they had some sort of movie visual presentation.
And not to put you on the spot here, but was the VAB, was it built for the shuttle program? Or was
No, I think it was built years before
Okay.
because like
Yeah.
there's some doors that were just extremely tall vertical doors, but they were made so your Apollo type rockets could come out. They didn't need to be wide
Right.
because those things were pretty thin in the grand scheme of
Sure,
things.
yeah.
But I'm not sure when they built it.
Wow.
But
Well,
the center was called the John F. Kennedy Space Center.
Yes.
So
And I've experienced it. So when you describe the bus tours, when you get to effectively the central hub and the tours go off left, right, and centre, I've experienced that. I mean, in recent years. So
Okay.
I know I can visualise what you're describing there. And yes, I've never been inside the VAB building, a vehicle assembly building, but I can see it in my mind's eye. And if my mind's eye is serving me well, the building to have a huge stars and stripes
yes,
flag painted
yeah,
on
the
the
flag's
side of
painted
it,
on it.
yes,
And
yeah.
it seemed like there was some sort of star painted on it, as I recall.
Oh, really?
And
Yeah.
I'm sure the NASA logo's on it somewhere
Yeah.
too. I mean, I haven't looked at pictures of it in forever, but again,
Yeah,
you
but
can pull them up right now on
there's-
your
yeah,
phone as
there's-
you're listening and see pictures of
Yeah,
it.
there's no shortage of pictures. But I had no idea it had its own sort of its own weather inside.
Yeah,
the
that's what they
building.
told us. They said it will get our own clouds in there. So I'm like, well, that's pretty impressive. But again, I can't remember how we were miles probably away from it,
Yeah.
you know, and it was so dominating the landscape. So and then we spent time on walking around, like say the inside museum area. They just kind of let us have free reign at some point. Well, there was the funny thing I remember. There was a display, and the back of it was kind of like a moonscape of what the moon looked like, and it was like the front three quarters of a rover. You know, the cars they sent up there.
Sure.
And they had a mannequin sitting in it, in the full outfit, the white
Spacesuit,
outfit with
yeah.
the thing. And a friend of mine went over there and he was really looking over the suit, looking at all the little portals
Yeah.
and stuff like that, where the air attaches and all
Yeah.
that stuff. And all of a sudden he found out quickly it wasn't a mannequin. The thing turned at him with,
No kidding.
with his arms outstretched. Scared the living bejesus out of him. Because he was the guy that walks around during the day and will take pictures with you and stuff like that. And well, he just kind of settled in there and stayed quiet for about 10 minutes, waiting for
That's
somebody
so
to come
funny.
up
I would love to have seen that.
and send him shrieking.
Yeah. Boy, I can just see that astronaut suit now, and all those couplings, they were all anodized red or
Yep.
blue,
Mhm.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, just look fantastic. And I'm always, I have to say, slightly disappointed when I see contemporary astronaut suits now that are used by astronauts on the way up to the International Space Center. That's what it's called, isn't it?
Space Station.
Space Station. That's right. International Space Station. Yeah. The suits just don't look anywhere near as cool as the Apollo suits did.
Well, that mirrors Formula One. The suits today aren't near as cool as they were when they had all the patches and stuff.
That's
Now they're
right.
these screen printed things that aren't near as interesting.
Yeah, I always think that when I see these astronauts, as brave as they are, setting out to fly into space, and they seem to be wearing sort of Wellington boots, and I don't know, they don't look quite as cool as they used to back in the Apollo days. But yeah, you're right. Time moves on, and I'm sure contemporary suits are far more efficient.
Yep. But yeah, that was a really one of my favorite trips. Because again, I still remember. It was in junior high, so none of us were quite old enough to drive or anything. So I just remember all the buses pulling in, all the parents waiting to pick us up and finally take us home that evening.
Yeah.
We had our little souvenirs and stuff. I remember I bought 2 plastic cups. I tell you, we used those plastic cups for probably 20 years.
Really?
After that. Yeah, there's a good size. And eventually the logo just washed off in the dishwasher and all that. But
Yeah.
I always had them with me, Who knows what happened to them.
What a cool experience that must have been for you guys to go to a NASA operation. And here's me on the other side of the Atlantic looking over thinking, really? Seriously? You're visiting a space assembly building? This is fantastic.
Well, I remember one time, and I think it was, just since we're talking about the Kennedy Space Center, we went, I think another time a few years later, but they were talking, and we went to a presentation where somebody, actually did the presentation, and they showed the heat shield, and they put a torch on it,
Yeah.
and showed how hot it can get, but yet you can just touch it like a few seconds later.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, I think it was, something like that.
Cool.
It absorbs the heat and it dissipates it, whatever.
Yeah.
And they were talking about one of the landings, or when they came in, I guess California or California and Texas were the 2 landing spots, I think, for the
That's right.
shuttles. Because remember, they always had to piggyback them
Right.
on 747s to bring them back. But the guy was up there kind of joking around. It's like, yes, Captain so-and-so, on his first landing and stuff, and he had his mark. He was supposed to, stop the. And he was pretty darn sloppy. He was 15 inches off his mark. You're talking about this massive, gigantic, thing is the size of a, massive airplane. And he said, yeah, he was 15 inches off.
From outer space to 15 inches off.
Yeah. So everybody got a good
We'll give him
chuckle.
that.
Exactly.
Yeah, one of the Formula One drivers gets 15 inches off. Well, that's a big deal. But
Yeah.
when you're landing from outer space, I think we'll give them 15 inches.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that sounds like an absolutely fabulous experience to have gone to NASA as a young man. Where else did you go to? I've got to ask you because I hardly used to go anywhere, and neither did my school friends because we just never had the budget to do it.
Yeah, well, as we got into high school, one of the, and people, again, anyone that's listening that went to Leesburg High will always remember this. In science, because I must have gone at least 3 times, there was always a field trip, if you were in the right science class, to the limnology lab. You know what a limnology lab is?
No.
Limnology, now I might be getting this quite off, but limnology is the study of lakes.
Did not know
And
that.
how they change and age and
Yeah.
such like that. Well, I remember specifically
Sorry for my introduction. Is it LIN?
limnology.
Limnology.
Limnology. Like,
Limnology. Wow,
I'm pretty
I've
sure it's
heard that.
LIM-nology.
Limnology.
Limnology.
Well, you learn something every day.
So we would go there. I just was always in the right science classes where I probably went 3 out of 4 years. And one of the years we were in Mr. Good's environmental science class. Again, anyone from my era will remember Mr. Good. And you'd go to the camp, and they kind of do a little introduction thing. They have this like cabin, and then you'd go down and get on this pontoon boat.
Yeah.
And they would take you kind of through these little kind of estuary things ahead, and you would stop there, and you would have this round disc that was like the BMW Rondelay.
Okay.
But it was black and white.
Okay.
And what you were to do is you were to have a pad and a piece of paper, and it had length on the rope, and you dropped it in the water slowly until you couldn't see the image.
Okay.
And then you mark it, and it gives you a reading of the clarity of the lake.
Oh, right. Oh, yes, I see.
So kids would do that and take their notes and stuff like that. And then at one point, and he always, you said, always wear your old clothes because we're getting in the water. And you'd jump off the pontoon boat in water that was chest high.
Wow.
And you would trudge through, and the leader, the guy that ran the lab, I can't remember his name now, but he always had these waders because he did it all the time, so he was keeping dry. In
So
these
he was
waders.
dry. Yeah.
But they would carry this like butterfly type net,
Yeah.
and they would catch different insects, that were part of it, and then pull one out and show it to everyone. This is a so and so bug or whatever it was, and it
Yes.
lives here in the reeds and da 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 da. So it was really kind of close up. And one of Mr. Good's things, he wanted you to really be immersed in the situation. Literally, he would have every one of us dip down to our neckline in the water, and he'd say, "Now sit there quietly and enjoy and acknowledge your surroundings and stuff." And we're like going, I wasn't kind of betting on this.
Wow.
So you were sitting in this murky, swampy kind of,
So it's sort of
lake water in central Florida.
Zen and the art of limnology.
I think that's what he was kind of getting you to appreciate. But of course, we were always come out soaked,
Yeah.
period, each time we went to that thing. But Yeah, we went there, like I say, a few years. And it was always a day out, and
Yeah.
a day away from school. So
And so I'm in awe of the amount of the number of field trips, as you chaps describe them as. I don't know what we call them up on the other side of the Atlantic. We would not refer to them as field trips. I think just an outing, a day out, day away from school. I'm never sure we really learned an awful lot, but yeah. How many per year would you guys get involved in? Was it like once or twice, or every month? Or?
Once or twice, and there certainly might have been a year where I just didn't have one, where my curriculum of classes I was taking didn't garner one.
Yeah.
Like I said, just like any other city, growing up, we had a planetarium down there too, and I remember going to that one a few times. I'm trying to think, and then, like I said, we go back to the theater ones. There was occasionally ones that were theater related. And for example, I was in the art club. I was always involved in art through high school. So we did one where it's kind of almost an unsanctioned field trip. We went with the art teacher and went to art museum in DeLand, Florida. But DeLand, Florida isn't too far from Daytona Beach.
Okay.
So we hit DeLand, and I can't remember, like 5 or 6 of us, and we went through the little art museum and saw the museum, and then it's like, off to Daytona Beach for the rest of the day. So we hung out there for the rest of the day, hanging out on the beach.
Yeah, well, and that's the art museum done.
Yeah, and I still remember stuff you'd never do today. I remember coming back, riding in the back of the teacher's pickup truck with a folded out lounge chair, just in the back of the pickup. Flying down these back roads. Nowadays,
times have changed. Yeah.
Nowadays, I wouldn't even want to try it. But good gosh.
Yeah.
But again, things were different 35 plus years ago.
Things were so different. Yeah.
But it was always one of the days you just most look forward to.
I bet.
Getting away from school, doing something totally different. Sometimes quite fun.
Yeah. And were there many overnight field trips as well?
No, there was.
There's never. That didn't happen.
If there were, I was never involved in one. I can't think of one.
So that used to happen on summer camps. I mean, I'm trying to learn.
Yeah.
So that would happen on summer camp, but it wouldn't happen during regular school events.
No, the only time I remember ever doing anything really overnight is when I was in the Scouts.
Yeah.
We do a jamboree.
Yeah.
Type of thing or something like that.
Yeah. Now we would do that. We would often go away on camps with the Scouts and the Cub Scouts over in England. Yeah. And I enjoyed that very much. And as I said in another episode, I'm sure I moved from the Cub Scouts to the Scouts and into the Army Cadets, and we used to go away on camps and that. But not. So yeah, school trips were very, very few and far between for sure. Thank you to our gentle listeners that have written in and shared their experiences about the odd subjects that we do talk about. But one reoccurring theme that always seems to crop up how folks appreciate what we talk about is that contrast between my early years growing up in England and your early years growing up in the United States, and the contrast between the two.
Yeah.
Yes. And for those that have missed earlier episodes of Matches and the Other Guy, I grew up in England in the 1960s and 70s, and we talk about it being a comprehensive education, which was state education, which we all had to go through. But we just we always seem to be short of funds for everything. But I mean, I used to look across from one side of the Atlantic over to you guys over here and hear about field trips and see them on TV shows and think, wow, you guys got it made. You go away to all sorts of different things.
Yeah, another interesting one that people throughout the country that are listening may not even know this happens, maybe they still do it. But back then, everybody in Florida, when you were a senior and about to graduate, they had something called grad night at Disney World.
No kidding.
And it would start at about 8 p.m. on a Friday or Saturday night.
Yeah.
And it would last till 8 a.m. the next day. It was all night at Disney World. And they did it over a few different nights because they would bring in, I think every high school in Florida was eligible to attend. So, one night it might be these counties are coming, and then the next night these counties, because you can't have them all there at one time because there's too many. And so they'd spread you out. But
what was the idea? You could enjoy the park overnight.
Yeah. Now, of course, you bought a ticket. Nobody was providing this for free.
This is amazing
The
to me.
state or local governments was not providing it for free, nor was Disney World. But you bought a ticket, like you'd buy a ticket for the prom or whatever. You're buying a ticket to
Yeah.
attend.
But I'm guessing, I mean, and again, tell me if I'm wrong here, I'm guessing that Disney helped with discounted tickets for this? Or
I can't remember how much
absolutely
they.
not?
Yeah, it wasn't anything outrageous.
Yeah.
From what I remember, I don't even want to put a number on it.
My school friends over in England, if we were having this conversation in the night, let's say it was 1971 instead of 2021, and we were, having this conversation that you guys you'd gone to the Kennedy Space Center, you'd got into the Vehicle Assembly Building, all sorts of exciting trips with NASA. Oh, and by the way, we also used to go to Disneyland and spend the entire night at Disneyland. Wait,
Well-
you're doing what now?
Well, it gets even better. I mean,
It
not
does?
only were you there, you got to be at Disney all night long. They also had top bands there.
Yeah.
Our year, they had this was '87, and they had 4 different performers that night, and they had different stages in the park. And one of them was Orange Juice Jones, the other was Ready for the World. Third one was Glass Tiger, which we saw them.
Okay.
My date and I and whoever we were hanging with, we went to. It was kind of in Frontierland. They had a stage set up for them
Yeah.
in Frontierland, and right in front of Cinderella's castle on the main stage right there, Wang Chung performed. So we saw Wang Chung as well. So not only, like say, you get all that time in the park, you get a couple of concerts while you're there.
That's absolutely fabulous. What an
Yeah.
experience that must have been for
Oh,
you.
it was great. Now,
Yeah.
the one thing, and I applaud them for doing this. There was a strict dress code to do that. Like they would give you pamphlets, at your school.
Okay.
Men were to wear, or men, whatever, at that
Right.
age, were to wear a shirt and a tie.
Yeah.
And it was like they even spelled out no bolo ties, which are those kind of Western rope ties.
yeah, I know, yeah,
So
yeah,
they said
yeah.
no bolo tie. They had all these like yes, yes, yeses and no, no, nos, what you can and can't wear.
Yeah.
And they were picky about it. And that kind of keeps things in check a little bit. I think I can't remember what the girls were required to wear or whatever,
Yeah.
but
Well, there's nothing wrong with dress code. We may have talked about this before, but did you have a school tie, a particular?
no, we didn't have
hat?
uniforms. Remember?
No uniform, so no tie, no collars. You can say our school is going to be green and white or whatever it would be.
Well, every high school, I guess, really every high school in the U.S. has their school colors.
Yeah.
And ours was orange and black.
Okay, orange
Yeah.
and black.
On Halloween, we looked really in place.
So yes, I remember you telling me no school uniforms, but there was no old school tie being issued either. So you,
Oh, no.
no, right,
No, not.
Yeah.
I can't even remember. I'm trying to remember what I wore. I probably had a suit and something, and maybe some skin. It was the '80s, so probably some skinny black tie. It wasn't leather. I can say at least say that. In fact, I think that was one of the no leather ties or something, which I wouldn't have worn anyway. That wasn't my scene. Yeah, every school will have usually green and white, orange and black, orange and white,
Yeah.
as their colors. And generally, you see, the cheerleader uniforms. Obviously, the athletic jerseys are those colors, and all your
yes.
paraphernalia, your pennants, your promotional little toy footballs, all that kind of stuff is whatever
out
colors.
of all of your, and I've got to say, truly remarkable field trips that you've experienced, I can hardly believe the things you used to do as a kid at school. What is your one that stands out above all others? You think, wow, I'm so pleased to have been on that particular field trip.
I guess that had to be the Kennedy Space Center one.
Yeah.
Because again, it was all day and plus, and we just it was
Yeah.
so fascinating. It was a great time because again in '83 the shuttle program was still kind of new. I think they had one up and down, maybe 2.
Okay, yeah,
by
so
then.
it's just, it was all modern engineering. I mean, it was all cutting edge technology.
Yeah, and obviously, if you're
Yeah.
a student in that and was very interested in science,
Sure.
that was a great outing for you on top of everything. And it was a fascinating era, And my dad had been a mechanical and nuclear engineer, and had worked
Yeah.
he'd worked on some NASA projects, but he was never allowed to talk about them. So
Yeah, what tremendous experience. I mean, I've said that 2 or 3 times, but I'm so pleased for you to have experienced all of that. And it really does highlight the contrast between what was happening in England and what was happening in the United States.
I'll give you one more example, which really wasn't a field trip, but you'll get a kick out of this.
Yeah.
We always had, and this was in junior high, and we had PE.
Okay.
And it was either in the gym or it was out in the field, track and the track and field area. And who knows what it was going to be, whatever day or whatever. Well, they had somehow set it up where some of times you would have bowling. So they would load you up on the bus, and you'd go a couple of miles to the bowling alley.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like on your rotation, like it was your turn to go bowling or not. Well, at least 2 or 3 times, I would just get on the bus to go bowling because I'd much rather do that than anything they were doing on the track or in the gym. And I always think it's like that scene in Fast Times at Ridgemont High when Spicoli's coming in, and he goes, "Are you in my class?" "I am today," and that was me. I would jump on there and go off and go, but nobody ever said a word to me. We'd get back and make it to the next class, and
that was it. You're on the bus. You went bowling. Had a good time.
Had a much better time going bowling for 50 minutes or an hour than I did whatever they were going to do. Heck, they probably missed out on just calisthenics or something. So,
well, gentle listener, I'm going to. Anyone that's unfamiliar again with what comprehensive education was like in England, I encourage you to go to YouTube and just look up the soccer match or football match from the movie Kes, Kes. And I know those clips are on YouTube because I've watched them. That will give you the perfect idea of what my education was like in England. So you can fully appreciate why I'm in awe of what you, Kevin, have experienced and your school pals over.
Well, I have seen that clip, and I believe our listener is going to come out with a little more sympathy for my co-host.
Yes, rough times it was indeed, but hey, that's the way it was, and we all survived. I'm sure we've got on to better things, or at least I hope to believe some of us have gone on to better things.
Well, I think those out there that think British education was a lot like Harry Potter are kind of a little.
Not so much. Not so much in my experience. Of course, there were the very expensive private, as we called it over in England, private education, which were known as public schools.
Which I still am baffled that it's the absolute opposite of what we call them here.
That's the fun of the language for you. Yeah, public schools, private education. Yeah, they exist. Those very well-heeled and exclusive schools do most certainly exist, but for the vast majority of us over in England, it was a very different experience.
Well, for the benefit of the listener, in England, what is like the top? What is the one? And do they do all grades?
Yeah, well, the one that always stands out to me is Eton. Eton is
I've heard of that. Is that where the royal family then goes
I'm
and
sure,
such?
Yes, that's probably the one well-known public school private.
Yeah, I've definitely heard the name.
Yes, and at one time, from leaving Eton and those other well-known public schools, because I don't really know much about it because I never experienced it, you would leave and go up to Oxford or to Cambridge, and that was considered still very elitist education. And to an extent, I suppose it still carries that, if you like, that stigma of being elitist. But I want to believe that Oxford and Cambridge, the two great university cities of England, are a lot more democratic than ever they used to be, and entry is based on skill level and aptitude as opposed to just being from the right family or going to the right school. I want to believe that, but again, I've not been to Oxford or Cambridge.
Well, they need to nurture the next great scientists and great mathematicians and the great poet laureates and stuff that need to come out of these systems. So.
And they're always the colleges take an awful lot of international students because it is tremendously good business as well for the colleges. But I've always been fascinated by. Again, I never went through that system, but I've always been in awe and to a degree in love with the city of Oxford when I just walk the streets of Oxford and see these just magnificent college buildings that have been a working college for 1,000 years. It's just something inspiring to see that, And many of the colleges will throw open their doors and allow visitors, and you can walk the buildings. And you just mentioned Harry Potter, but quite a few of the scenes from Potter from Hogwarts are filmed in Oxford colleges.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think the Bodleian Library, if I remember right, I think the Bodleian Library played host to Hogwarts Infirmary when Harry is injured playing Quidditch. That beautiful old building with the beds in there, I think that's part of the Bodleian Library system. Anyway, I don't know how we got onto that, but it highlights the difference between American education and English education. But yes, it was an odd experience for us that were blue-collar working-class folks, and there was an awful lot of us. But again, we survived it. We didn't do bad out of it. The university of life, as they say.
Yes. Which sometimes is, can have more valuable results anyway. Experience has its own rewards in spades. So there you go.
Well, and to take nothing away, I don't want to belittle college education at all. I don't want to appear sour about it because I didn't experience it. But I do feel that an experience of life is as important as a college education to a large degree. I do feel that sometimes, I just feel, and I might be wrong here, that university can educate folks to be extremely knowledgeable in a very small slice of the cake of life. But those same folks can appear somewhat lost about what happens away from academia. And I think perhaps the School of Hard Knocks gives us more of a rounded approach to life. But that might be just me.
Well,
because I never experienced college life.
Yeah. I mean, the same person could design a whole defense missile system, yet a microwave oven baffles them. How do I not burn my popcorn? It burns every time. That type of thing.
Yes. Well, I suppose in conclusion, though, all we can say is all of our experiences, whatever they may be, whether it's me over in England visiting HMS Victory and being amazed at how small and compact that wooden ship of the line used to be, and your experiences of going to NASA and evenings in Disney, it's the experience. It all makes us who we are, right? It just makes us who we are. Those experiences form who we become in later life.
Yeah, and it just goes to show how regional it is. Like, I've never had a chance to see a old frigate boat, our ship, obviously.
That's very true.
That's very fast. I didn't even think about, being able to see one in person.
Yes, I suppose it's a matter of just being open to experiences and being, again, we're getting on a bit of a philosophical study here, but I think that idea of just being open to new experiences and being prepared to ask if you're unsure about something and learn from others that have experienced whatever it would be is the way that we should all advance in life. Am I wrong in that, do you think? Am I missing something there?
No.
Yeah, I like that idea. Well, we better think about... What were we talking about before? It was field trips, that's right, yeah.
Now, the topic is field trips.
we got lost a bit there, didn't we?
Not too bad this time, not too bad.
Yeah. Well, we better think about wrapping this up, hadn't we?
Yeah, starting to actually get light coming through. I think we're going to... it's still drizzling a bit, but the weather seems to be on the improving side.
Yeah, we've survived the storm, I think. Well, I think somebody else's storm, as my uncle said many years ago to me. Somebody else's storm. We just caught the tail end of it, I think.
Yeah, and the geese remain quiet.
Yeah. Well, if we've got any, I can't even see them.
They're across the lake by the boathouse now.
Oh, I see them over there. Yeah.
The neighboring boathouse across the way.
Join us again, gentle listener. I hope you enjoyed that, by the way. That was a bit of a rambling one, that for me. I'm sorry about that. Join us again, gentle listener, on another episode of Mashing the Other Guy. That was fun. I like that. Bye for now.
Bye.
Toodles.